At the end of the day, if it doesn't work out or if it's not what you wanted, at least you tried. Whatever is happening in your life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. You should trust yourself more than anyone or anything. There's more for you. Trust it. Keep trying. Keep doing your best. You're gonna be fine. If I'm called bossy in the process, then so be it.
Hi everyone. Welcome to the Reclaiming Bossy podcast. My name is Mahika and today I'm joined for a super interesting and deep chat with my good friend Tatiana. We are going to be talking all about how to build self-trust, how to have more interesting and inspiring conversations, and also how to navigate an era where you feel uncertain, insecure, and maybe a bit of a flop in your life. This episode is a bit like a hug. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it gives you the courage to have some deeper, better, more fun conversations going forward. Thank you. I'm so excited for this chat.
Me too.
You like to have deep chats. I love to have deep chats. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. Can you please start by introducing yourself as if you're speaking to someone that you've never met before?
Okay, I always mess this up because I black out. You know when you're a kid and they ask you to go around the classroom and like say the 3 fun facts about yourself? I always forget what to say. And
Let's start with your name.
Okay, Tatiana. I'm Tatiana. I'm from Miami. I moved to Spain around 2.5 years ago, specifically to Madrid, which has been my home. And within this time, I started doing events called Deep Chats, which some people may know about. And it's because I got my master's in psychology before I came here. And I wanted to be able to incorporate this kind of space and setting into a place that maybe needed it, or I saw that there was like a niche for it, and also make mental health destigmatized and not as taboo as it maybe seems on this side of the world, at least.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I love that. And I remember, so Tatiana and I met, it wasn't pre-podcast, but it was pre-Reclaiming Bossy. And I think it's awesome to see how things have evolved. And I want to talk a little bit more about like when you move to a new place, when you start your life in your 20s, there's this inevitability of feeling lost and feeling like you can't do it right. You can't get your career right. You can't take the first step that you need to take. You're criticizing yourself of where you need to go. And so how have you found like navigating that and kind of starting something and fighting kind of like those voices of like how you should be doing things and how things should be going in your life and your career and how to kind of just lower the bar for yourself?
Yeah, I think I got slapped in the face when I came here with that, specifically because I didn't even know what I was looking for, to be honest. I kind of just felt called to move across the world, specifically to Europe, to really any country, but Spain was the easiest, and so I just kind of went with it, and I really had no expectations. And even having no expectations, I still felt not let down, but like confused maybe, because when you move anywhere new, even if it's the same country, you kind of have to like restart. And I felt like I didn't have a guideline or a how-to book, or I didn't know anyone here. There was nothing really to guide me. It was more of just like my intuition and trusting that things would work out. And there were so many moments I had where I just wanted to leave. I was like, you know what? I'll just stay 3 months, and if I don't like it, I'll leave. And after that, okay, another 3 months. If I don't like it, I'll leave. And I just kept telling myself that. And even in like the worst moments, I found myself thinking, there's more for you. Trust it. Keep trying. Keep doing your best. You're going to be fine. And it was that kind of voice that led me to where I am now, which is where I host deep chats in this beautiful house. And just, I've met the most amazing community. And I feel like listening to that was more important than any sort of advice you could get from like a stranger or people online or people on Reddit, which is what I constantly went to. People on forums telling you, you know, how to do this, how to fill out the paperwork, how to find your people. There's really no guide. It's you should trust yourself more than anyone and anything. So I would say like that was how I kind of got through that.
I think self-trust is one of the most important skills that you develop in your life. It's really hard though, and like it's not like if you Google like how to trust yourself, like I feel like the steps aren't outlined very clearly. So what have been some tangible ways that you've been able to build self-trust, and what advice do you have around that?
That's a really good question. Self-trust. Oof. I really think trial and error, as hard as it is like the best way, because putting yourself in hard situations is so uncomfortable. And once you do it and you're able to see like, oh, I got through that, I can do hard things, is the best way, in my opinion, to build that trust with yourself. Because you can see other people do it and it might seem easy, but it really never is. Even if people make it look like that. Like, for example, when I host deep chats, I always have to speak in front of people. And in my head, it's like there's monkeys flying around and I black out and I don't know what to say. But somehow it comes out fine. And everyone always tells me, oh, you seem so calm. You seem so natural. It doesn't feel that way for me. But I guess also hearing that reassurance from people who are closest to you, or maybe the people that don't even know you, also helps a little bit with that as well. Just kind of going through the trial and error, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out or if it's not what you wanted, at least you tried. And that can also build trust, as well as knowing that you're going to be fine no matter what.
I think that also gives you the ability to be spontaneous. A little bit of context for everyone who's watching. So I met Tatiana 2 years ago at an event. And when I decided that I wanted to do an international season, she was one of the first people I contacted saying, hey, I need to meet some cool women. I need a space. Please help me out. Do you want to collaborate? And that's how we ended up in this beautiful house. And we weren't planning on having this conversation like this today, but she was here and I was like, hey, come, let's chat. And a lot of people would not I don't know, like that's a really hard thing to do, but even building the ability to say yes and be a yes person requires a lot of self-trust. And so I think that's so powerful. We've discussed self-trust. What is it like trusting life? Because I think like when you're starting out in your career, your journey, moving to a new place, you have all of these expectations of how you want your life to pan out, how you want your career to pan out, the kind of friends you want, the kind of relationship you want, and you can do your bit, but then there's this part where you have to just kind of like trust the universe, let it happen. And that I find frustrating. It's too much for me. I'm like a little bit like, when is it going to happen? How can I make it happen? How can I make it happen quickly? So how have you found that trust side for trusting life and how things pan out?
I'm a big spiritual girly, and I'm kind of similar. I like to kind of have a framework of how I think things might go, and I use all different kinds of tools, such as astrology. I know I can be the crazy star girl, and I don't care.
I'm a crazy star girl too. It's okay.
Yeah, I love using that as a tool. I think it's informative and helpful. Does it guide my entire life? No. But to answer your question, I think it does come back to knowing that whatever is happening in your life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I have to tell myself that constantly, because even in the, can I curse on here?
Yeah.
Even in the shitty days, excuse my French, it's just like, yes, this sucks and it's gonna suck. It's gonna keep sucking. But I know that there will be the light at the end of the tunnel. Kind of like once I get through it, I can look back and say like, oh, that happened and it was for a reason most of the time. With relationships, with work, with everything that has happened to me so far, I've been able to look back and think, oh, this happened to, or sorry, not to me. This happened for me, not to me. And it was for a reason, and now I can see it clearly, So I think just trusting that when you are experiencing those hard things, you will be able to look back and say, I got through that.
That is so powerful. And I think it's not just a spiritual thing. I see business people. Steve Jobs had this whole thing around like the dots make sense when you look back. And I think that's so true. Also from like a neuroscience perspective, priming your brain to see opportunities, even in crappy times, means that you will find them. If you look for stuff, I mean, your brain has this thing called the reticular activating system. It means like what you look for, you're going to find. And so how have you been able to find the opportunities, the right people, the community from scratch living here in a different country?
Ooh, it took me some time. I did have to filter through the wrong people. I had to filter through the wrong experiences, the wrong crowds, the wrong communities. And I'm not saying that everyone is going to, experience that. Some people are lucky and it just kind of works out from the get-go. But for me, I think experiencing those wrong people or wrong places, or just places that were not so aligned, I always had that feeling like I know it's out there. I know I'm going to find it. It may not be this, and it may not be my time, but there will come a time when I do feel more aligned. And I don't know if it's just because I trusted that so much or what, like an inner feeling, like a gut feeling almost. But yeah, I think you do kind of have to experience some of the wrong things to know what you don't want and what's not right for you. And when you do find the things that are right for you, such as this place, my friends now, the community, the events that I've been hosting, it just kind of like all flows naturally, It's things that happen or unfold naturally and organically. I don't necessarily have to try so hard. It just kind of comes to me in abundance. But I'm not saying that, that'll happen for everyone. I think it's just knowing that when you realize what you don't want, it'll lead you to the right places.
I love that. Do you have any advice for anyone who's in a flop era? I just came out of like the most crazy flop era and I've had in a few years. I went through a breakup. I went through like the worst like health, hormonal acne, feeling like really crappy in myself. There was a lot of things happening with work, with everything. And as much as I love like trusting and manifesting and doing the thing and making the vision boards, this year really did not feel like new year, new me. It was like very hard. And now I'm starting to really understand that a lot of things, if you want a better hand in life, you got to reshuffle the deck. And I went through the most insane reshuffle. But when you're in it, and when you are experiencing those moments of this is not for me, I don't want this, I don't like this, how do you stay present in that without trying to like skip to the next thing and fast forward?
It's really hard. I can resonate with what you say because I also have been kind of in a weird flop era as well. Even though seemingly on the outside it might seem like everything's going well, my business is growing, I'm able to stay in this country that I want to stay in. Simultaneously, I lost my job. I have other things going on, that are kind of out of my control. And I think what's so important, just I mean maybe coming from like a psychology perspective, is that you kind of have to feel those really shitty feelings. Not forever, and they're not going to last forever, and you shouldn't, let it get to a point where it's detrimental. But I think it's important to sit with it, like sit with the shit, like sit in the mud almost, because it's part of your path, and once, like I said before, once you get through it, it's rewarding, and it kind of like activates that dopamine inside of you. So I think if you're in your flop era, then you should just sit in the mud and know that there is something good out of each day that you have. Like, even if it's like you talk to a friend, you talk to your family, you got like a little treat or something, to like a sweet treat to kind of get through your day, you can find at least one good thing each day. But my advice would really just to be like, let it happen, let it kind of come over you, because it will eventually pass.
100%. The way that I like to sit with the shit is I journal, and I find that once something is written down, it kind of leaves my mind, it's on the page, it's like the page's problem. Also, I have this thing where once it's written down, my rational brain kicks in and I debate the belief. So it's like, oh, I feel like this. But then like I've kind of trained in like I always write a reframe or like something I'm grateful for or blah, blah, blah. And that really helps me. But do you have any other tools that allow you to kind of sit with the shit?
Yeah, I guess I write a lot of like my mirror at home is full of all these crazy notes that I talk to myself. Talking to yourself is fine. When you hear other voices, maybe that's when it gets a little questionable. But I like to write little things to myself, like I attract good things, abundance is everywhere, good things happen to me or for me, like little notes like that, or the sweet treat, like I mentioned. I love cake, cupcakes and cookies. I love little things that can bring me joy. Also journaling, like you mentioned, writing down what's on your mind. Music is also really helpful. It's interesting because I know that I'm in a flop when I'm not listening to music. And I think actually when you are sitting in that silence, it's easier for messages to kind of come to you, or thoughts that can kind of help you through it. Whereas if you're constantly having like a stimuli, it's kind of harder to like hear your own thoughts, and it might be harder to get through it. So I would say if you're one of those people like me where the stimuli can be like really overwhelming, maybe just sit with it in silence, or like go outside or touch grass. Like I love touching grass. So anything like that I think would be helpful.
I love that. And that reminds, can I tell you a little story?
Yeah.
So this actually happened to me in Madrid, and I have always been like, I have ADHD. I've always been the kind of person that loved stimulus. And when I was doing stuff, I would always be working with a podcast on, or music, or an audiobook, or whenever I was doing any chores or any errands, I was constantly consuming information because I felt like that was productive and because it felt comfortable to just have a lot of stuff all the time. And I went through a very big flop era a few years ago when I was living in Madrid. I had some visa issues. My phone got stolen. My whole family was all in my home country because my parents had a second wedding, and every single person that I loved was there apart from me. I felt very lonely. There was some issues with my property where I was staying, and so the water wasn't working. There was like a hole in the floor. I had exams, but because my phone had been stolen, I couldn't get onto the exam thing, so the university was threatening to fail me. I was like, everything is going wrong. Like, what is this? I felt so bad. Also, like, the thing that I was wanting to pursue romantically, like, it just didn't work out. My friends were leaving. I felt so lonely and lost. And I had planned to go to this concert, this artist that I really, really love, that is from the States actually, and he was coming to Spain for the first time. And I was going to go alone. That was the plan. My phone had got stolen, so I had no way of like actually getting there. And so I was like, I'm not going to go. And then I was like, no. This was something I promised to myself that I'm going to do. And so I went, no phone, really bad mood. And I went by myself, and I was standing in the crowd, and this lady starts talking to me, and she's like saying that she likes my outfit and whatever. And then she told me she came all the way like 6 hours just for this concert. I was like, that's so cool. And we were chatting and everything, and we started having this very spiritual conversation. And she told me that she was like a lot older than she looked, and I was like, what is your advice? Like, I need skincare advice, like all the stuff. And She was like, I don't take care of my skin, I take care of my soul. I was like, oh lol, okay, how do I take care of my soul? And she was like, silence. The universe only shouts when it's angry. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, the universe only shouts when it's angry. And I was like, what if you're angry at the universe? And she was like, are you angry at the universe? And I was like, yeah, I am. Right now, I feel lonely. I feel lost. I feel like all this random stuff is happening to me. I don't really understand what's going on. I feel like I'm a good person. I'm doing the best I can. Like, why is this happening to me? And I was pretty pissed off. And she was like, it's so important that you understand that when you make space for silence and you feel that and you listen to that, that's when you can move through it and you can let go of it. And she gave me all of these beautiful words of wisdom. And every time I want to reset, I make time for silence because I know the universe shouts when it's angry. And that concept was so beautiful because it was all this music I loved listening to growing up, and it reminded me like the importance of just taking the time to feel your feelings and to see how far you've come. And I feel so great because since that moment, like almost 3 years have passed and so much has happened. What has that journey been like for you in starting Deep Chats? Like, what would you say to the version of you that moved here and was starting afresh?
Oh, I would say buckle up. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. And to be fair, I never really envisioned myself even doing anything like that or talking in front of people. I think I was always kind of like a shy, weird kid. I was a little squirrely. That was my nickname in elementary school. I was the squirrely kid, and they had to put me like in a corner because I was just constantly like moving or looking at the birds outside or I don't know what. But yeah, I was a little like shy. I didn't really like to speak in front of people. I often don't really like to speak in rooms in general. Like even in social events, I get very overwhelmed. And I think what you were saying about silence and this story that you shared is super important because silence sometimes people can view as like really awkward and they're uncomfortable with it. And I think with Deep Chats, I have tried at least to push not the narrative, but just the fact that silence is okay. We can sit in this and it cannot be awkward, or it might be awkward and that's fine too. Like sometimes when people are sharing and then there's a break between one person to the next, there's a bit of silence or it's a little awkward because you don't know who's going to go up to the chair. And I tell myself and I tell everyone else, like, it's fine. You know, we can sit here and we can allow for this to be what it is. And that has also helped me start Deep Chats in general, like knowing that it will be for some people and it will not be for some people. And that was hard for me to accept at first because when you're starting a brand or community, of course you want to appeal to the masses. I even talked with Johnny about this because he is my videographer and we bounce ideas off each other. And of course I started with making the reels on social media as kind of like uplifting, and the music was like fun and Kate and like a vibe and jams. And lately I've been shifting more towards wanting to convey the message that it is a deep space. It's Deep Chats. People who come here want to have deep chats, and those are the people that are aligned with the idea. And so what we're putting out there is now more not dramatic, but a little more drama, a little more passion, a little more energy. And so for that, just trusting that the right people would find me and the right people would find it, and they have. Every time that I do an event, a chat, I am blown away by the people that come to these events. They're so open-minded. They have so many beautiful things to say and they really want to be there. And I knew that I would find those people. So I did.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think one of the most powerful things about having this kind of thing is a lot of people are stuck with the same social script. Socializing in London, going to a networking event, going to the pub, it's a job. Everyone's like, what do you do for work? What are your hobbies?
Same in the US.
Yeah, right? And it's like not anyone's fault. It's just people kind of have this script of what is allowed to be said and what's not allowed to be said. And so do you have advice for anyone who potentially doesn't live in Madrid right now and can't come to your events that wants to have more interesting and intentional conversations? How can you start by breaking that script and getting maybe not too deep to start off with, but just a little bit more human and interesting and interactive?
I think the questions you ask people say a lot about you as a person. For example, I have a really good friend named Steve. I don't know if you've met Steve before. Very tall. He's been around Giri for quite some time.
Is this the guy who asks the box question? That if you're a cube, how big is the cube? And like...
I don't think... No, he's not famous. He should be though.
No.
Different person.
There's a guy that I met once and like I found this, again, I agree, I think questions are really important, and like I met him at an event and he was like, if you were a cube, how big would you be? And I was like, what are
Yeah.
you? And he was like, I can tell a lot about you by the size of your cube. And I was like, what is
That's
happening?
interesting.
But I remember that conversation. It was
Yeah.
3 years ago. And so
Yeah.
I think maybe just sometimes having the courage to ask interesting, weird
Yeah.
things.
Interesting or weird, or even like, for example, I come from the US and it's very similar to what you're describing is what do you do for work? What car do you drive? Where do you live? What are you wearing? Everything's like a status thing, at least in Miami. I don't know about maybe smaller towns in the US, but it's very individualistic, like you're saying. And when I first came here, he quickly became one of my good friends, and he asked me, what do you like to do? And of course, I was like, oh, well, I work as an auxiliar. This is my first job here. And he was like, no, like, what do you like to do? And I really had to think about it. And looking back, it's like he just wanted to know what I like to do as a person in my free time. What do I entertain myself with? What do I listen to? You know, my interests. And it was such a different question. And since then, I try to approach conversations with the same mentality of instead of what do you do here in Madrid? What do you like to do in your free time? Or what about Madrid attracted you? You know, something that's more intentional and not just the typical what do you do for work, because everybody has a job, you know, and most of the time they don't want to talk about it unless they really are passionate about it, which is awesome. But, you know, there's so much more to people than their job and occupation.
Awesome. I love that. For me, I like to think, what can I learn from this conversation? Like, what is this person really interested in? Because usually when you find the topic that someone's really interested in, it lights them up and it makes the conversation way more fun. But that's something that I think is super useful. For anyone that is listening to this conversation that wants to have better chats in their life, you've already given one story, but what's the homework? How can they have a deeper, more fun conversation?
I think some self-reflection in terms of like what kind of relationships do I want in my life, and also if you are coming from an individualistic space such as the US or the UK, like you said, think about things from a more community-based perspective. I mean, not necessarily study these spaces, but like Madrid is very community centered. Spain in general is community centered. I think you have to think about the people around you, your environment that you're in, and if you're not in the environment that you want to be in, maybe think about a different environment like we did.
Yeah, you can always leave the bubble if you're not happy.
You can leave the bubble, or you can change the bubble. You can start with an initiative, kind of like what I did is not knowing if this would even land, but surprisingly it did. And that's always an option too. I think you really have to focus on other people and not just yourself when you want to have more intentional conversations.
I agree, but I do think that it does start with also the way you talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Because in order to break that script and to have more interesting conversations, you have to know how to communicate about yourself.
Yeah.
And so do you have any like final advice on how you can talk about yourself in a more empowering, interesting way, not just to others, but to yourself as well?
Yeah, I struggle with this a lot, honestly, because, well, we could sit here for hours and I could tell you why. But the short version is that I never know how to introduce myself, or I never know how to talk about the things that are important. For example, I recently just had like a job interview and they asked me about myself and I completely skipped over deep chats, which is crazy because that's become my entire life up to now. So I think my advice would be as good as anyone else's, but I really think it comes down to just believing in yourself is number one, believing in your passions and what you're drawn to, because it's there for a reason. And the things that you're drawn to and you're passionate about will naturally flow better than you trying to be something else. Like, be authentic. And lean into that authenticity and knowing that there is someone who it'll resonate with out there when you are speaking about yourself. And speaking to yourself, like I said, I have many little notes around my mirror at home just saying, even you're beautiful, you got this, you can do hard things.
Yeah, you can.
I can't stop with his hand, but yeah, just like talking to yourself. Obviously, we're all hard on ourselves at sometimes, and I think more than we should be. But try your hardest to say nice things to yourself, especially in a mirror. It's a really big like energy vortex. Just try to say those nice things, and I think over time, if you do it repetitively, it'll become more true in your head.
I love that. For the people who are in Madrid, how can they get contacted with you and with Deep Chats, and where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Deep Chats X. There's an X because there's a burner account that has Deep Chats, and I've been trying to fight for it for so long. But Deep Chats X on Instagram, you will see like there's a link tree there where you can sign up for a chat. You can read more about the project, and then my personal is just Tatiana Fyodorov. If you want to find me, yeah.
Okay, my last question I always like to ask, because this is Reclaiming Bossy, is have you ever been called bossy? What does it mean for you, and are you reclaiming it?
I'm definitely reclaiming it, yeah. I think in a very different way. I've been called bossy in my life, mostly by my parents, like at home, and never really in a social situation because I think that I'm a more timid person naturally. But definitely reclaiming it in the way that I see it is I am a boss. I have my own company now, I have a business, and I have to kind of lead with that. And if I'm called bossy in the process, then so be it.
I love that. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.